are calling to order the meeting for the Auburn School Committee, July 15th. You can join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'll start with introductions to my right.
Dan Poisson, Ward 5.
Lydia Chapman, Ward 4.
Misty Edgecombe, Ward 2.
Corin McGuigan, Ward 1.
Sue Doris, Superintendent.
Jay Rich, at large.
Adam Platt, City Council Representative.
Amanda Kucher, Business Manager.
Scott Anier, Assistant Superintendent.
All right, on to the consent agenda. That includes the approval of the agenda, approval of the minutes of the June 17th meeting, and the superintendent's recommendations for the following certificated contracts pending appropriate certification and or licensing. Melissa Anderson, Crystal Hafner, Sarah Davis, Abigail Hines, Evan Conley, and Elena Bonus. I would like to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion passes. We don't have any recognitions this evening. And is there anyone here for public participation? Nope. Okay. On to our presentation. Let you.
Thank you. Tonight we will be hearing about the City of Auburn's comprehensive plan. We have Lauren Caffey here to tell us about that. So come right up and sit next to Mr. Neer. I think Mr. Neer may join in as well, as he's been attending some of these meetings.
And this was brought up due to something on the agenda that Dan had spoken about earlier about understanding the comprehensive plan and how it includes ours.
Thank you, Scott, for passing those things around. Hi, everyone. It's nice to meet you. This is my first school committee meeting, which is exciting. I'm Lauren Caffey. I'm the long-range planner for the City of Auburn in the planning department. And so, thank you. The city is updating its comprehensive plan, which in broad terms is a very broad plan. It's a vision for the future of the city. Municipalities in Maine need to have a comprehensive plan to be in compliance with the Growth Management Act, and it opens up different funding avenues and so on. Most important part of the plan is that it's a vision for the future, something that city officials and people in the community can follow and align themselves with, and it's heavily dependent on public input and community engagement, which has occurred over the past year and a half. And so the city structure for creating this plan, it's about a 20-person committee made up of Auburn residents, city staff, city officials, planning board representatives, and city council representatives. And right now the plan is in its final third, I'll say tentatively, because who knows what the next few months will hold. But the committee's been working really hard on balancing community feedback from our engagement events last summer and into the fall with state legislation. And thinking 10 years in the future is a challenging task. And so they've been working on that, and hopefully we'll have a draft plan in about a month. But really, I don't have a formal presentation for you. I'm here to answer questions that you might have, because I know this has come up in conversations. What even is this? Why are we doing this? And so on. So I'm just happy to take questions.
Thank you. My question is, I guess, in broad terms, what things impact school systems? I mean, I know some of those answers, kind of a leading question, but what are the biggest topics that you generally intersect either the operations or the direction of school departments in municipalities?
Yeah, that's a great question. So part of the comprehensive planning process is to do an inventory and analysis of the city at that moment. And so collecting data on different sectors of the city. So that includes demographic data, includes in school enrollment, it includes an inventory of different school buildings and city facilities, and projected trends over time, so population shifts and so on. So the plan can take into account what's happening now and then plan for that future potential change. And so that's one way that it can impact school systems, is what's the data showing on enrollment and demographic shifts in terms of families moving into the city, younger, older demographics, how they're moving around at a very high level. We use census tract data for those. And in another instance with the future land use map, it's a precursor to zoning. So the comprehensive plan is not a zoning map. It sets the stage for potential or future zoning changes in the future. And so something that we've been thinking about in the city is with the land use categories, which is you can think of a land use category as kind of like the personality behind what would be a zoning ordinance. And so we've been thinking about those in the sense of how can we look at trends and think about where the city might be going and anticipate those. And so that might impact school systems depending on where schools are on that future land use map and in those land use categories for zoning changes in the future.
Does anybody else? I just wanted to talk a little bit more because what brought this up was that there was conversation about one of our schools and a potential closing, but that conversation hasn't happened here. So we're working really hard to be transparent, to be open with the community. And so when community members see that, they think that we're trying to, hide something from them. So what I would like to see is that if there's going to be conversation about school properties, that someone is there from the school department when those conversations happen, because, from the facilities, I know, Scott, you've been to a few of them, but I think that was our major concern because we've been working really hard over the last few years to have that open communication with our community, and that kind of shut it down a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand that there are two schools that came up in the comprehensive plan committee meetings, and if you take that meeting in a silo by itself, it's like, oh my gosh, we're closing the schools and we're changing them. The comprehensive plan is one set of a multi-step process it's a puzzle piece in a larger puzzle of any change that happens in the city. And so the conversation around those schools started, and I apologize that there wasn't a school committee member at the meeting. The reason that that got part of the discussion was thinking about what's happening with the facilities master plan, or however you're calling it, the group that's looking at that. What's the current zoning in those schools? And if there are potential school closures anywhere in the city, what are the opportunities that we would have in that instance? And so I've been thinking about that as kind of like an emergency fund. You have an emergency fund in case something happens. You're not willing it to happen or hoping that happens, but if it does, you're ready and prepared and have opportunities to move in different directions. And so the zoning districts with the two schools that were talked about were, if they were ever to be talked about being closed, what's the potential for redevelopment of those schools? And they were in zones that were limited in that sense of thinking about our current housing needs in the city. And so why that conversation happened. These are in areas that we can adjust with the land use categories, and then make sure that if that were ever to happen in the future, that could have more opportunities for development potential.
And I just kind of wanted to add, because Lauren and I had talked about that after the meeting, that wasn't a discussion that came from city staff, that came from members of the comp plan who, as Lauren was describing, we're talking about future zone uses, and that's where the conversation went, and it didn't come from the city saying, hey, let's have this conversation. If you've watched how the process has kind of unfolded, Lauren does more of the behind the scenes, gathering the information, collating the information, so as well as the rest of the city staff. It's very community-driven conversations that take place, and they're just really supporting the facilitation of those pieces of conversation and making sure that they're prepared for the next rounds of discussions.
And I would just add to that, I think it's important for anyone sitting here and also members of the public, up until now, the conversation of the comp plan and what the school department's trajectory is, those conversations have not been at the same point in their evolution. And so as the school department ramps up further discussions about AMS and what comes next, we will start to catch up with where the comp plan is at. And so that, I think, was one of the issues, is that there was a conversation happening with the comp plan that was a little advanced for where we were at with our with our discussions. And so, for anyone watching, the school department's process will be incredibly transparent, participatory, with anyone who wants to be involved. And so I think more of what the comp plan is dealing with, the puzzle piece, it'll start to make a little more sense in the context of what we have to discuss. But again, as you said, Corin, we're just beginning that
Yeah,
discussion
and I just
now.
want to make sure that we're open and the community hears this and we have that. 'Cause I was on the school committee when it wasn't like that. And so I don't want to close those avenues. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Thank you very much for
Thank you so
coming.
much.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now on to, we don't have a school committee student representative. Hopefully they're having a good summer. Superintendent's report.
Thank you. I have 3 brief updates tonight. First, I'd like to provide an update around our summer programs. This summer, we're providing academic, enrichment, and specialized support programs for over 400 students. Programming includes literacy and math tutoring and summer learning programs at both the elementary and middle school levels, plus credit recovery, multilingual learner support, and we have a variety of extended school year services going for students with disabilities. These programs continue to support student learning, growth, and engagement throughout the summer months. And as we've done in years past, we'll bring you some of those outcomes probably in the second meeting of August. And then next, I have an update regarding the 2027 graduation date. The graduation date for the class of 2027 is Saturday, May 29th, which falls on Memorial Day weekend. We typically hold graduation on the Saturday after Memorial Day weekend, but because Labor Day falls later in 2026, this changes our calendar and it requires us to move graduation up a week. So this will be just a one-time adjustment for next year only, and then we expect to return to our regular schedule the following year. And then finally, I want to let the school committee know that we'll be holding a workshop prior to our next regular meeting on August 5th. And the workshop will begin at 4:30 p.m. and this will focus on reviewing and updating the school committee goals. Thank you. That's all I have.
And school committee chairperson's report, just something quick. You all should have received the evaluation form, the superintendent evaluation form from Pam earlier this week. Just a reminder that they're due back or filled out by July 27th. And that'll give Pam enough time to organize the responses before our executive session during our August 5th committee meeting. And all of it is confidential. She doesn't know who responded to what. It's very, and if you have any questions about the evaluation process, please do not hesitate to reach out. Okay. Committee reports. Standing committees, we have the finance subcommittee agenda linked in the agenda. Nobody's met yet over the summer. Don't have any old business. There's no new business. Upcoming meetings, is there any changes that anyone can see with those? And any future agenda items and requests for information, does anyone have? Oh, this is pretty easy. Okay, then I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Second?
All in favor? Meeting's over. Have a wonderful day.